Today we're turning this beautiful cotton into some gorgeous plaid towels. Let's get started. Hi everyone, it's Steph and welcome to another video. I've changed my design because I just couldn't get the pink to interact in the plaid design with the other colours for anything that I actually liked. And the thing with plaids is that you have to think about how the colours interact when they intersect. So I've changed my design, I've eliminated the pink, and this is the design we're going for today. I've also given you some other colour choices for you to think about if this is something that you want to try but you're not fond of the blues and greens. Plaids are another classic design that are reasonably easy to put together as long as you're happy with the colour choices. They can be simple like the one I'm doing today, or more complex. Think about a tartan. The colours I've chosen for this is the blue is called jeans, the green is called sapin, the yellow is gold, and then white. The dominant colours will be, of course, the blues and the greens. I remember my mum telling me when I was young that blue and green should never be seen without another colour in between. And I asked her about it the other day and she couldn't remember what the origin of it was. She just remembers her mum telling her that. It seems silly these days because blues and greens go together beautifully and are currently two of my most favourite colours. So I'm flouting tradition and putting blues and greens together. And if anyone knows the origin of that saying, pop it in the comments below. Now I'm set up ready to go. I'm just attaching the apron rod to the heddle and that just helps with tension, and then I wind on a little bit just to make sure everything stays in place. So I'm using a 10 dent reed today. The weaving width in the loom is 55 centimetres, which is just under 22 inches. The length of the warp is 1.9 metres, which is around 76 inches. And I'm weaving two towels at 80 centimetres each, or 31.5 inches each. The warping of this is quite simple. I've just put a snip from my program up, but remember that the program goes right to left. So to start with, I'm just putting a little yellow border of 2 loops, giving 4 threads on either side at the start and at the end. And that just helps to keep the colour edges nice and crisp. Then I'll be starting with the blue. So there are 12 blue threads, 2 white, then 12 blue again. So I'll be pulling through 1 loop, which is 2 threads, through the first 6 slots, and then 1 loop through with the white, and then another 6 through with the blue, then 1 loop through for the yellow, and then I've got a smaller square in the design of the green because I wanted the blue to be the dominant colour. So the square for the green is 8 threads. So I'll be pulling through 4 loops through the next 4 slots, 1 of the white, the next 4 slots of the green again, and then 1 of the yellow, and that is the repeating pattern. The actual pattern works out almost perfectly to 55 centimetres, but because I'm putting a yellow border on either side, I'm going to go over the 55 centimetres by a couple of slots. After a quick check to make sure I've warped correctly, I unhook the heddle from the apron rod and unclamp the loom. I wind on just a little bit so I can slop some brown paper, which is what I use as a warp separator, in, and then I wind on directly towards the pegs. Once the loom is on the stand, I secure the warp in small groups just with a simple loose overhand knot, and then I just work on one group at a time, and this just saves your warp in case you bump the heddle off the loom like I did not that long ago. So I grab the first group, snip all the loops down the bottom, and then I can start threading. Threading is simple, no special instructions. If you're threading left to right like me, then it's just moving 1 thread from the slot to the hole on the right. If you are threading right to left, it's just moving 1 thread from the slot to the hole on the left. As I go, I'm knotting them all as well. So just grabbing a group of 8 threads and popping a knot down the bottom and trying to line up the knots so they're roughly the same length across the warp. For lashing on, I use some scrap yarn, which is around 4 to 5 widths of the loom. I wind half up onto a yarn butterfly just to make it easier to work with, and tie one end to the apron rod. Then I grab each group of 8 threads, divide it in half, drop the yarn butterfly through the top, around the bottom of the apron rod, and then onto the next group of 8 threads. I like to tighten up a little bit as I go, it just makes things easier at the end. Once you've gotten to the end, before you tie up the other end of the scrap yarn, just strum the warp behind the heddle and just make sure that everything is even for tension. If you can feel any slack areas, you can adjust that, and once you're happy, you can tie the other end of the scrap yarn onto the apron rod. For spreading the warp, I like to do 3 picks of scrap yarn without beating, and then beat those 3 picks down nice and firmly, making sure that you've got a nice straight line down the bottom. Then repeat, do another 3 picks without beating, and then beat those 3 picks down firmly, and that's usually all I need to do to spread my warp. I've wound 3 shuttles, one with the blue and one with the green, because these are the ones I'll be using the most of. And then the 3rd shuttle, I've just wound the white on one side and the yellow on the other. As always, I like to cover my knots just using a cardboard tube. I got this one from wrapping paper. Then I'm just going to attach my measuring tape just with a quilting clip on the side, and that will help me measure where the first tower ends and the second tower begins. As always, because it's towels, I like to ensure that I've got a nice neat selvage. I'm going to do a video in the new year on selvages just to help you achieve a nice neat edge on your weaving like this. Sometimes when you're doing lots of different colour changes, you don't want to end your yarn and then start another line. You can actually just carry the yarn up the side and in your selvage, and I want to show you how to do this here. So here I'm doing 2 picks of white and then going straight back to the green. So I want to carry that green up the selvage, but I don't want a big loop on the edge, making a messy selvage. So what I'm going to do is just loop that white yarn around the green and then tuck that end in. That way the green gets tucked into the selvage and it still remains nice and neat. I'm going to do the same thing on that last pick of the white. I'm going to wrap that white yarn around the green and then tuck it in and then beat. And I can go right ahead and use that green again, and the edge has actually been tucked in nice and neat to the selvage. Now I've finished the first tower, I'm at 80 centimeters, so I'm just going to do a couple of picks of scrap yarn, and then I'm going to do something different for the second tower. I really like the way the green interacts with the blue and the other colors. So for the second towel, I'm actually going to do just green across the whole towel, and that will give us 2 towels that are coordinating but not the same, so they're still part of a set. Now I'm just at that awkward last few inches of weaving. So what I'm doing is popping the heddle in the up position, and then behind the heddle I'm just popping my pickup stick in that shed. You can use cardboard or whatever, or even a shuttle, and this really helps to neaten the shed when it gets to that last bit of weaving where your shed is a little bit wonky. If your shed is a little bit too narrow, just push the stick up further towards the back of the loom, and that really helps to widen that shed just a little bit more, just to make that weaving a little bit easier for those last few inches. Once that's done, I put in a few picks of scrap yarn, and then I can take the weaving from the loom. To do that, I'm just nipping small groups together and then doing an overhead knot up close to the scrap yarn. Then I can remove the weaving from the loom. I really love how the green on that second towel looks, and I'm wondering what it would have looked like if I'd done the blue on that second towel as well. I think it would have looked really beautiful also. To wet finish, I'm bunging this straight into the washing machine on the delicate cycle with a little bit of dish soap just to get rid of any machine oils from manufacturing the yarn, then straight into the dryer so that everything is pre-shrunk, ready to sew. After wet finishing, I give the weaving a good iron. There is a little bit of tracking, but not very much on these towels. After a good iron, I'm just going through and snipping off all of my tails, then I'm ready to sew it into two beautiful towels. Let's look at measurements after wet finishing. We started with just over 55 centimeters. I think it was 56 centimeters in the loom. And after wet finishing, the width is now 47 centimeters, which is 18.5 inches. So we lost a fair bit in shrinkage and draw in. The length of the towels was 80 centimeters on the loom, and after wet finishing, it's 67.5 centimeters, which is about 26.5 inches. To safely cut the unwanted ends off and separate the towels, I'm just going to zigzag right up close to where the scrap yarn is at the beginning and the end. Also either side of the scrap yarn in the center of the towels. I have no idea, by the way, why I did 4 picks in between the towels of scrap yarn. I normally do 2 picks, 1 or 2, never 4, so I have no idea why. Anyhow, once the zigzagging is done, I can then cut the towels apart without worrying about anything unraveling. I'm just measuring where the halfway point is in the towels before hemming, just so I know where to put the little handmade with love fabric strips so that the towels can be hung. Once that's done, I roll the zigzagged edges twice and then pin it down, and then I'll just use a straight stitch on my sewing machine to hem those down. Then when I get to where I've marked the center, I can just slot those folded over fabric strips in and hem them down with the hem, and that's enough to secure it. As always, I want to thank you all so much for watching my videos. Thank you for leaving lovely comments and for liking my videos and supporting me. It really means a lot to me. I'm always astounded that people want to watch my videos. So thank you to each and every one of you. Please enjoy the reveal, and I hope you have a wonderful day.